Picture getting detained for no reason by an officer, unaware he's tangling with the one individual capable of bringing him down. The roads of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, lay silent at this time. Monica Carter, a 38-year-old state prosecutor, had just finished a grueling day at the courthouse. Her thoughts still buzzed with courtroom tactics as she guided her black Lexus along Perkins Road toward home. Street lamps lined the way, throwing dim light across the nearly deserted street. Her phone vibrated in the cup holder, likely another message about tomorrow's discussion with the Attorney General's office. She let out a tired breath, worn out yet attentive, as she flicked her turn signal to shift into the right lane. Then it happened. Red and blue flashes burst in her rearview mirror, cutting through the night like an alarm. A quick gasp slipped out. She wasn't speeding, wasn't weaving. What was this about? Monica steadied her breathing, pulling over calmly. She knew the drill, hands on the steering wheel, no quick moves, cabin lights switched on. The burden of her identity as both a black woman and a seasoned lawyer sat heavily on her. A patrol car stopped behind her and out stepped Officer Greg Hensley, young, stocky, striding with an air of command that seemed slightly overdone. Monica rolled down her window before he could knock. "Evening, officer. Anything wrong?" Her tone was steady, deliberate. Hensley angled his head, flashlight sweeping over her face, then landing on the briefcase beside her. "ID and registration," he said brusquely, voice distant. Monica carefully reached for her bag, pulling out her wallet. "Can I know why I'm stopped?" He stayed silent, studying her ID for a long beat before looking up. "Didn't signal that last turn." Monica knew she had. She always did, reflexively. It was a flimsy claim, but she held back from challenging it just yet. "I understand. I'm actually," Hensley interrupted. "Were you going tonight?" Her fingers tightened around the wheel. "Home." His light hovered over her car's interior, the briefcase, the crisp navy pantsuit she still wore from court. The tension thickened. "Get out of the car." The command struck hard. Monica's eyes widened, lips parting in shock. "Pardon me?" I said. "Get out." Heat rose in her throat. She'd seen this play out too often in her cases and knew its meaning. "Officer, I'm a state prosecutor. I just left the office." "Doesn't matter who you are," Hensley barked. "Out." A chilling clarity settled in. He wasn't hearing her. He'd already judged her. She could comply or push back, but she knew escalation's cost. Monica drew a deep breath and opened the door. Yet the way Hensley's hand brushed his holster twisted her gut. The pavement chilled her heels as she exited. Movements precise, hands in view, posture upright. Hensley stepped back slightly, hand lingering near his weapon. Monica locked eyes with him. "That's unnecessary." Hensley's jaw clenched, his gaze raking over her as if hunting for an excuse, something to back up the conclusion he'd already drawn. "Face the car, hands on the roof." Monica's breath sharpened, but she kept it in check. "Not here, not this way. Officer, I'm unarmed. I've done nothing wrong," she stated, voice firm despite her racing heart. "You're not cooperating." His tone took on a daring edge. Monica held his look steady. "I'm requesting a valid cause. A missed signal doesn't justify a search." Hensley grinned faintly, as if anticipating that. "You're obstructing." That word sent a shiver down her spine. She'd heard it countless times in court, from clients stopped for nothing, then labeled threats just for their skin. She shut her eyes briefly, steadying her mind. She had to stay sharp. "I want your sergeant," she declared firmly. Then it all changed. Before she could react, Hensley seized her arm, roughly. She staggered a bit, bracing against the car. "Hey!" Monica snapped, pulling back. "You're crossing a line." Hensley didn't pause. He twisted her around, jerking her arm behind her. Pain flared in her shoulder as she gasped. "This isn't legal." "You're resisting," Hensley mumbled, his voice monotone like this was mundane. Monica strained to glance back, fear clawing inside her. "For what?" she yelled, but he gave no reply. He didn't need to. Metal clicked cold against her wrists, handcuffs biting as they locked. The world shrank, distant traffic faded to nothing. This couldn't be real, not to her, a state attorney who'd battled this exact misuse of power her whole career. Yet here it was. She clenched her eyes shut, choking down the fury blazing within. Not now, not here. Hensley clamped her arm, guiding her to his cruiser. "Where am I going?" she demanded, turning slightly to face him. "You'll see soon enough," he replied, pushing her ahead. The door banged shut behind her. Reality weighed down. She was detained. For what? Being there? Questioning him? Defying power with no right to act? Her breaths evened. She flexed her hands against the cuffs, the metal stinging her skin. Fear wasn't there. Rage was. Greg Hensley had no clue what he'd unleashed, but he'd learn soon. The squad car reeked of old coffee and sweat. Monica sat stiff in the back, wrists sore from the tight cuffs, breaths slow and deliberate. Outside, streetlights streaked by, but her mind was elsewhere, replaying every word, every action, every choice Hensley made. He'd wanted this. The car jolted over a bump. Hensley sat mute up front, one hand on the wheel, the other near his radio. Monica's voice sliced the silence. "You know you've messed up." The patrol vehicle rolled into the precinct lot. Hensley exited first, banging his door shut before wrenching hers open. He seized her with force, tugging her out just hard enough to prove something. Yet Monica didn't fight back. She stepped forward, heels tapping the concrete, chin lifted. Every cop inside was moments from discovering her identity, and she relished the thought of their reactions. Harsh fluorescent bulbs hummed above in the East Baton Rouge police station, bathing the booking zone in stark light. Monica entered, posture erect, wrists still bound, thoughts cutting like a blade. Hensley steered her onward, his hold on her arm overly firm. He aimed to assert dominance. Monica allowed it. Behind the desk, a burly officer in his mid-50s peered up from his forms. Sergeant Roy Blanchard, graying hair, bushy mustache, a veteran who'd witnessed it all. "What's this, Hensley?" he muttered, eyes barely rising. Hensley squared his shoulders. Nabbed her for wild driving, wouldn't follow orders. Monica exhaled sharply, nearly chuckling. Blanchard's gaze finally settled on her, drifting from her sharp pantsuit to the briefcase under Hensley's arm, then her face. That's when it clicked. Realization washed over him. "Hold on a second," his eyes flared. "Is that—" Monica tilted her head a fraction, a faint smirk emerging. "Monica Carter," she stated coolly. "State prosecutor." Quiet fell, a heavy, uneasy stillness. Blanchard's face lost color, his glance darting to Hensley, then back to her. Suddenly, he sprang into action. "Hensley, uncuff her this instant." Hensley scowled. "Sir, she—" "Now," I said. Hensley faltered, fingers fidgeting near his belt. "Christ almighty." Blanchard pushed past and freed her wrists himself. Monica flexed her shoulders as the cuffs dropped, massaging the red marks left behind. The room went silent. Blanchard faced Hensley, voice hushed but biting. "Do you realize who you've hauled in?" Hensley bristled. "She wouldn't obey." Blanchard's face hardened. "She's the lead attorney on police misconduct for the whole damn state." Hensley's complexion faded. Monica moved deliberately, reaching into her bag, the one Hensley had rummaged through like she was a common crook. She drew out a slim black card and set it lightly on the desk. It bore the words, "Monica Carter, State Attorney's Office, Civil Rights Division." Hensley gulped for the first time that night. Doubt crept into his stance. Monica locked eyes with him, her tone even yet deadly. "You've just tanked your career." Blanchard turned to her, his manner softening, cautious, polite. "Miss Carter, I'm truly sorry. This was a mix-up." Monica's stare held firm. "No, Sergeant, it's a trend." Blanchard sighed, rubbing his brow. "Can I do anything?" he murmured. Monica's smile was cold. "Yes," she replied. "I want my call." Because by morning, the whole city would hear of this night. The phone in Blanchard's office rang twice before a known voice picked up. "Robert, it's me." A beat, then the tone sharpened, focused, tense. "Monica, what's happened?" Robert Keller, Louisiana's Attorney General. Monica glanced at the one-way glass, sensing Blanchard and Hensley stood there, observing, anxious. "I've been arrested." A pause, then controlled outrage. "Where?" She gave the location. "I'm coming," he said. Click. She placed the receiver down softly, adjusting her suit as she rose. Blanchard coughed. "Miss Carter, I—" She raised a hand. "Save it." He fell silent. 20 minutes later, the doors flew wide. Robert Keller stormed in, tall, authoritative, a man of few words. 2 state investigators trailed him. The room stilled. Keller's gaze found Monica. "You okay?" She dipped her head once. "I will be." Keller faced Blanchard. "Sergeant, explain how your officer detained my state prosecutor on a baseless accusation." Blanchard swallowed hard. "Sir, Keller cut in. "Not out here. Your office, now." Blanchard hurried forward, ushering them in. Hensley lingered by the desk, shifting awkwardly. For once, he seemed diminished. Monica stepped near, her voice a whisper meant only for him. You figured I was just another woman to shove around, she said softly. You thought I'd stay quiet. Hensley had no reply. None existed. But she pressed on. I deal with this daily, Officer Hensley. You know what's coming. He swallowed, avoiding her eyes. They'll dig into you. Your body cam will be checked. Your history will be exposed. Hensley's breath faltered. And once the world watches what you pulled tonight, she breathed out slowly, you won't just be some badge-wearing cop. Her voice dropped. You'll be a risk. Hensley stayed mute. He knew she spoke truth. Soon after, the office door burst open. Keller emerged, face like granite. Monica, he said, we're filing charges. Hensley's breath hitched. His career ended there. But this went beyond him. It was about every instance a badge became a tool of harm. Every soul without her rank, her allies, her strength, stopped and silenced with no way to resist. Tonight, Monica held sway, and she'd wield it fully. Come morning, her phone wouldn't stop. Newsrooms, peers, advocacy groups. The tale had spread. By midday, body cam clips hit the public. Everyone saw it all. How Hensley's demeanor shifted when he clocked her, how he brushed off her title, ignored her rights, and ramped up without reason. Anger brewed. The mayor's office put out a notice. A probe kicked off. Hensley was sidelined without pay. Yet Monica foresaw the spin. They'd call it a lone error, paint Hensley as a rogue. Her courtroom years proved it ran deeper. That evening, she faced the cameras, staring straight ahead. This isn't my story alone, she declared. It's about power misused. It's for those without an attorney general's number, those who never hit headlines. Lights flared, pens scratched, but she kept going. We say bad apples, yet ignore the roots they sprout from. The crowd hushed. It ends when we demand real accountability from law enforcement, when we fix the setup that lets this repeat endlessly. She paused, letting it land, then finished. I got lucky. I shouldn't have needed to. The press event closed, but the dialogue was just starting. That night, Monica sat solo in her office, gazing across the city. She'd fought for fairness in courts for years, but perhaps her next battle loomed larger. Because this was only the start. If this tale stirred you, don't stop here. Call for justice, raise your voice, stay aware, push for reform. Monica's journey shows one thing: power shifts only when silence breaks.